Hello and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to discuss the new moon or Amavasya that's happening on 19th December 2025. This talk is from a Vedic astrology perspective, or Jyotish as it's known as in Sanskrit, which is ancient Indian astrology that's more than 5,000 years old. So it seems like this moment in time is indicating a warning sign of some kind. So let's take a look. Beforehand, the information presented here is for educational purposes only. It should not be considered medical, financial, professional, or life advice of any kind. If you are in need, please contact an appropriate professional for support. And you might take a minute or two to read the rest of this disclaimer. All right, so some announcements and just general orientation, especially if you're new to the channel. So I'm offering a level 1 Vedic astrology course that's going to start January 14th, so that's right around the corner. That'll last for about 12 weeks. It's going to be Wednesday evenings, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or New York time. That'll all be on Zoom. So if that's something that resonates with you and you feel like it's time to really dive into Vedic astrology, you can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com for an application. The deadline to apply is January 7th, and space is limited. This is going to be a small group. And also, there's no experience required. Again, this is an intro class. So, also on the channel, auto dubbing is available in various languages. You can see the list here, and there are several new ones: Dutch, Polish, and Korean. All of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. Wherever you see a double asterisk in one of my talks, that means there's a teaching video on the subject if you'd like to learn more. My channel is all about playlists, so this kind of moon phase video is in my Go Chart Transits playlist, but I have other playlists as well. Also, if you'd like to learn astrology by looking at the birth charts of famous people, places, and moments in time, check out my birth chart archive list 2025 video, where I list the majority of famous charts I've analyzed on the channel and the videos you can find them in. Newest videos that I've posted that you may not have seen yet, Shishub and Amala yogas, which are attractive combinations, planetary transits or Gochar for December 2025, and then Kritika Nakshatra, which is a lunar mansion, which is kind of I like to call it the golden warrior star. So if you're new to all this and want to start learning Jyotish and get a good foundation, I've listed some videos at the end of the slide so you can start doing that and really get a solid foundation. Okay, so let's just take a look quickly at the chart that I'll be analyzing. And again, this is without my notes and markups and all that kind of stuff, so you can kind of have a chance to look at it yourself, especially if you're a student. Go ahead and, do your own analysis and maybe compare your notes to mine. Okay, so now if we start diving into it, like again, what are the first things I start to notice with a chart like this? So the first thing I noticed, again, is my eye goes to there are all these planets in negative houses here. So we've got, let me just orient you. So this is a North Indian style chart. And so if you're not familiar, and that top diamond in the middle, that's called the ascendant, rising sign, or lugna in Sanskrit. And that's really important because it gives a kind of vibe or tone, for the whole chart. Okay. And then to get to the other houses, what you do is you count inclusively from the first house and count counterclockwise or up and to the left. So you'll see in the second house, in this chart, there's a upside down triangle with K2 in it, and there's a little 5 in the bottom corner. That's the second house. The 5 refers to the constellation, the zodiac, fifth one, which is Leo or Simha in Sanskrit. Okay. So for this chart, this is a Cancer rising or Karka Lugna chart. Okay, you back up to the first house again, and the 4 stands for the fourth constellation of Cancer or Karka. All right, so we've got a Cancer rising chart here. But getting back to all these planets in negative houses, that's already telling me that there's a very fragile beginning going on here. Okay, some kind. Or transformation going on. So we've got Jupiter in the 12th house, we've got Sun, Moon, Mars in the 6th house, and Rahu, North Node of the Moon, in the 8th house. So that's 5 planets, but actually there's a 6th one. I would count a 6th one here. And if you look in the 5th house, we've got Mercury and Venus. And you can see Venus is at 29 degrees 58 minutes. So within an hour of this particular time, Venus is going to be joining Sun, Moon, and Mars. So you're going to have 6 out of 9 classic Jyotish planets in negative houses. I mean, that's a lot to deal with. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. And again, if you find, I consider Valarishta Yoga to be 4 or 5 planets in negative houses, and we've got 6 here. So Apalarishta Yoga, if you see it in somebody's chart, that can indicate difficulty in childhood, maybe medically, maybe mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, any kind of real difficult kind of beginnings. And the thing is, if it's really, really hardcore, actually the child may not even survive childhood. Okay. I've seen a few people, they've survived into, like, if they have a balarishta like this or something like that, again, they might make it till their early 20s or so, but they tend to, again, they may not survive. Okay. So anyway, we got the balarishta yoga here, so fragile beginnings. The other thing about this is that this combination in the 6th house, we've got the 2 emotional planets, Venus and Moon, and we've got the 2 leadership planets, Sun and Mars. So this is all about emotional leadership. And the thing is that this Moon is the what we call the Lagnesha, or the ruling planet for the whole chart, because Moon rules Cancer. And again, we're dealing with a Cancer rising or Karka Lagna here. Okay, so even the ruling planet for this chart is compromised. Okay, so again, mental emotional leadership is really being called upon here in this chart. The other thing that's interesting is all these planets are on the, outside periphery of the chart, and there's nothing on the 4 kendras of the 4 houses in the middle. Okay, so that may indicate that there's actually not a lot of core stability or direction or orientation. Like this might be kind of a shock and awe, or just kind of a stunned moment where it's sort of like trying to figure out, trying to lead oneself emotionally through some sort of, you know, uh, you know, chaotic moment here. Okay. Um, and also this, what we would call when Venus joins Sun, Moon, and Mars in the 6th house, which is Sagittarius or Dhanu house, we call that, when we have 4 planets in a negative house, we call that a Pravraja yoga in Vedic astrology. That's similar to what Western astrologers would call a stellium. So the thing about that is that, again, when we have, again, I'm just going to keep calling it Sun, Moon, Mars, and Venus, even though Venus is technically, in the 5th house. Again, it's just about to drop into this mix here. Yeah, so these planets here, they're going to draw a lot of energy to the 6th house. Okay. Because the sun rules one house, the moon rules another house, Mars owns 2 houses, and Venus owns 2 houses. So 6, so between the 4 planets here, there's 6, they own 6 houses. So those 6 houses, that energy is going to be drawn here to the 6th house. So which houses are those? Well, the 1st house, that's owned by Moon. The 2nd house, that's owned by Sun. We've got 4th house owned by Venus. We've got the 10th house owned by Mars. 2nd house owned by Venus. And the 5th house, I missed that one. 5th house owned by Mars. Okay. So all these house energies are going to be drawn into the 6th house, which is pretty intense because the 6th house represents things like acute problems, whether medically or physically or life-wise. So the other thing is with this Moon and Venus, again, those are the emotional planets, and Sun and Mars, the leadership planets. Sun and Mars are 2 fiery planets, so there might be a lot of irritation or anger or competition going on here. The 6th house also represents enemies. So there could be a lot of fighting going on that's quite emotional. The other thing is that these planets, what they represent, Sun represents father, Moon represents mother, Mars represents siblings, and Venus represents spouse. I mean, that's like the whole family there. And then up in the upper corner, we have Jupiter. Jupiter represents children. Okay, so we've got the whole, like, this could potentially be a family dynamic, or it could be something that involves the whole family. Like there might be infighting with the family, or again, there might be some sort of acute problem that's drawing the attention and energy of pretty much the whole family here. Okay. The other thing about this Pravraja yoga, again, this conglomeration of planets in the 6th house, is that especially once Venus drops in here in like a few minutes or an hour, less than an hour, all four planets are going to be in a nakshatra called Mula. So if you're not familiar, there are about 27 nakshatras or lunar mansions, they're called. And every night the moon passes through a different one. They all have different energies and deities associated with them. Um, and after the moon passes through all 27, you get a lunar month. Okay. So all four of these planets are in a nakshatra called Mula, which is symbolized by a bunch of roots tied together. So I typically think of farming, which is not, I think, a conventional way to think about it, but I often see that actually people who are farmers or have a farming background can have, um, some placements in Mula. But Mula is considered to be a pretty hardcore, kind of a difficult placement, as far as nakshatras go. The reason why is that see where Venus is crossing from Scorpio in the fifth house to Sagittarius in the sixth house here. So Scorpio is a water sign and Sagittarius is a fire sign. So anytime a planet crosses a house like this, it's unstable. Because like Scorpio is a water sign, Sagittarius is a fire sign, so you're switching elements from water to fire, and water represents emotions and fire represents action. But of the 12 different, what we call Sunday points here, or joint points where, a planet can cross houses, 3 out of those 12 are also junction points for nakshatra. So there's a dual instability. So as Venus is about to drop from Scorpio, and currently it's in Jyestha nakshatra, which is all about like protection of some kind. As soon as it crosses, it's literally crossing in 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes in terms of the sky. The zodiac uh, um, location, not like minutes time, but it's going to change not only from Scorpio to Sagittarius, but Scorpio Jyestha to Sagittarius Mula. Right. So that's a very unstable Venus, and you can see Sun and Moon. Moon actually a few hours before this did that as well. So the two, um, again, emotional planets are very much in flux here. The other thing is Venus and Moon represent women, and Sun and Mars represent men. So that's, potentially interesting as well, depending on who's listening to this. But so you can see basically Venus, Sun, and Moon. Sun only crossed this point a few days ago on the 15th, so the Sun is just starting to stabilize in Sagittarius now. So 3 of these planets out of 7 or out of 9 are again not only Sunday, where they're unstable crossing signs, but they're unstable because they're also extra unstable because they're crossing nakshatras as well. Okay, so getting back to this Mula, point of view. Again, if the symbol of Mula is a bunch of roots tied together, and again, I tend to think about farming, seeds are planted, and then the thing is, this little tiny seed usually pretty closed. It has to go through this amazing amount of transformation, and it has to have the right conditions to open up and start to grow and transform into whatever it's going to be, an apple tree or a rose bush or what else is there? All kinds of stuff. A sequoia, redwood tree or whatever it's going to be. But it's an arduous journey. I mean, it's easy to drop the seeds in the ground and cover them up and then maybe give them a little water, but and there's only so much you can do. It's not a process you can always control. I mean, even with all the modern technology and chemicals and methods for farming and trying to optimize output and that sort of thing, at a certain point, I mean, whether you want to call it nature, God, divinity, the universe, or whatever, there's only so much you can do. You can be the best farmer, but seeds need certain things that we can't always provide. You know, and so it's not a journey. It's an arduous journey that you can't control as much as you might want to or try to. And again, we've got leadership here, so this might be like burgeoning leadership. This could also be especially burgeoning leadership in terms of emotional leadership here. Okay. Um, and then the other thing is that, again, there's a lot going on down here in the sixth house, and I haven't even drawn in the other arrows yet, but there's also influence from Saturn. Um, on Saturn is aspecting the sixth house. Saturn is a planet representing obstacles and delays, chronic issues, doubts, fears, that sort of thing. So again, that's also tipping the physical instability as well as the mental, emotional instability of what's already going on in the sixth house. And Saturn is in a nakshatra called Purva Bhadrapada. So the planet Saturn, which represents, destruction and death and chronic disease and things that most people aren't excited about, in most situations. And it's in Purva Bhadrapada, which is symbolized by the back legs of a funeral pyre. Or sorry, the front legs of a funeral pyre. So, even more transformation, things blowing up, flames and things turning to ash. Okay. So we've got all that energy dropping into the sixth house as well. And then in addition, because of the relative position of Ketu, the south node of the moon, which is in the second house, that seems like it's out of the mix here. But actually, K2 is aspecting its energy into the sixth house. And K2 is like an explosive, erratic energy. It's like Mars, but even more, kind of bizarre indications with that. Separatist indications of that, cutting off of things, ending of things, blowing up of things. And that is, the K2 is actually aspecting its energy into the sixth house as well. So the sixth house is really like on fire. Yeah, it's a hot mess, I guess. Yeah, maybe that's more accurate. It's a hot mess going on here in the sixth house. Okay. The sixth house, besides representing enemies and acute problems, it also represents the mid GI, like if we're talking about medical astrology. So this is like a whole lot going on in the mid GI here for somebody, potentially. And also, the sixth house represents employees, so there might be something along those lines. And the sixth house also represents things like pets and adoptive children. So, those sorts of things can, again, be in trouble as well. Okay. But in the end, again, because of the planets that are in this mix here in the sixth house, again, mom, dad, siblings, spouse, um, it looks like it's whatever's going on here is affecting all of them on some level. And then, again, I mentioned Jupiter is a planet representing children. It's in the 12th house. That can indicate losses or expenditures related to children. And the thing is that, Jupiter is the lord of the sixth house here. Okay. And Jupiter's aspecting its own house. So there'll be some protection. Believe it or not, things could be worse than actually what this is going on here. But there's losses here. The other thing is that the lord of the fifth house, which represents children, is Mars. And Mars is again in this mix here. So children, so again, mom, dad, siblings, spouse, children. I mean, that's like pretty much everybody, right? I mean, so, oh, and then Mercury is not in the mix there, but will be by the end of the month. So by the end of the month, actually, we're going to have Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Mars there, and then Moon is very fast, so it kind of flits in and out of houses. But we're going to have even more energy in the sixth house for, again, Cancer rising folks, and Mercury represents friends. So again, this looks like more of a family issue more than like an outsider issue, but especially, we're right around the corner, we're in the middle of some holidays we're in the middle of Hanukkah, and then um, Christmas is coming up and other, holidays around this time of year. So this could be some sort of, especially with Sun and Mars there and K2, those are all fiery planets. K2 will bring unusual energy. This could be some kind of accident or injury or infection. So, this could be something like, food poisoning or something like that. If not, again, some kind of physical, unusual unusual physical, but also emotional type of issue. Could also be something like a viral infection. You know, it's going to be hard to know exactly because again, KT is going to bring unusual energy to this whatever is going on here in the sixth house. Okay. Yeah, so let's keep going here. So actually here on this slide, I have the arrows from Saturn aspecting into, again, the sixth house from the ninth house, and K2 is aspecting from the second house, again, into the sixth house here. And then what else do we have going on? And then Jupiter is aspecting its energy into the sixth house. So again, basically we've got Venus, Sun, Moon, Mars as planets sitting in the sixth house, and then K2, Jupiter, Saturn aspecting their energy. The only ones not involved in the sixth house are Mercury and Rahu. I mean, that's like, what, 7 out of 9 classic planets. That's a lot of energy going to sixth house matters. Sixth house also represents routine, daily routine. So there might be a lot of energy here, like a lot of activity or unexpected changes going on with that sort of thing as well. So what else is going on? So as if that's not a lot already of instability, the lugna itself. So I mentioned Venus is again crossing from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So it's a Gandanta point, doubly unstable because it's crossing signs or houses as well as I should say signs and nakshatras. But the lugna itself, I circled it up at the top here. The lugna itself is at 28 degrees 4 minutes. This is another, I said there are out of the 12 different Sandhi points, which is crossing signs, 3 out of 12 are Gandanta, doubly unstable points. And so Venus is at one of them. And the ascendant for the chart is at a second one. So you can see the ascendant is just about to, within a few minutes, shifting from Cancer to Leo here. So again, shifting from water, emotion, to fire, action. Okay. So that brings even more instability to the whole chart. Okay. So again, this is like, and the other thing about the lugna here is that it's in the nakshatra called Aslesha. Aslesha is symbolized by a snake. And Aslesha has this very like attention grabbing, sometimes attention seeking energy to, cause like snakes, some people like snakes, some people, but most people have some kind of opinion about snakes. I mean, usually snakes don't like roll around and people just sort of ignore them. It's usually like I'm scared of snakes and I don't even know why. Even like the small ones that I know can't do anything. So, so I mean, they get a reaction out of me, and a lot of other people. Some people love snakes or whatever, but there's something about snakes that tends to bring, it's kind of like an alert or attention energy. Okay, both from people because again, usually people kind of perk up like, oh, what's going on? Because again, some snakes are poisonous. But even the snakes themselves, I mean, they do different things. Some of them slink off, they hide in a dark, cave or under a rock or whatever they do. But then some of them, they kind of rear their head and the hood around their head, opens up and they kind of make themselves big and they kind of waver and the tongue goes in and out and all this kind of stuff. It's like a mesmerizing thing, like the snake charmers or whatever. So again, there's this kind of alert or attention type of energy brought to the whole chart because of that Lugna nakshatra. So Lugnatia, like I mentioned, is this new moon. So that's the other thing is this moon is new. New moons, because they don't reflect any light from the sun, they're considered to be a weak position as far as Vedic astrology is concerned. So again, this is going to bring like less emotional resilience and strength here. So even more, again, tumultuous energy. And then all of this is going into the sixth house, which is what we call a dharma. Sorry, not a dharmasthana, an artisthana. I need to change that on the slide. An artisthana. So an artisthana is a house representing wealth, like material, tangible wealth. So whatever this emotional issue is, it's affecting something physical in the world. So it could literally be something like assets, like what could this be? Fourth house, seventh house, like a home or property. It could be here, but it could also again affect people because people are mostly tangible in the world. So there's some kind of, especially with the Lugnatia, the ruling planet for the chart, going to a house of wealth. There's something physically that's probably shifting and changing dramatically in some sort of unusual way. Okay, and then Sun and Mars again. That's a lot of fire energy here. So this could be inflammation, literally. This could be fighting. Some sort of disruptive, and this is all happening in a dual fire sign. So basically, there's a lot of fire going on here. I mean, this could be a literal fire, like for somebody's home, unfortunately. So, and then all the fire can bring about fighting and irritation and violence potentially. Okay. Now, the thing though is that these planets that are in the sixth house here, the only one you can see really is Sun. Venus is about to go combust. Moon is new, which basically means it's combust, and Mars is combust. So if you're not familiar, combustion is when something so like a planet so close to the sun you can't see it because the sun's light is blocking the direct view. In terms of you looking up in the sky with your own eyes. So when a planet is combust, that means the external manifestations are not there. But the internal manifestations are kind of stronger. So again, Venus represents love, Mars represents competition, fighting, Moon represents imagination, intuition, emotion. And so you can't see all this. So this fighting that's going on here might be internal. So this might be like again, but the whole family's affected. So this could be something again physically, like some sort of internal inflammation related to the midgut. Okay, it could be that. It could be since it's all internal here. This could be families. Again, the holidays are coming up. I mean, the holidays are sort of this time of year. They're sort of notorious for family fights and arguments and things like that. All these weird dynamics that kind of pop up that you can kind of ignore for the rest of the year. Um, so this could be like family fighting about, how to logistically make things happen. This could again be some sort of, accident or injury, um, especially internally, that upsets the dynamics and the routine of the family. This could be like maybe having some sort of family plan that one is not happy about, but is sort of like is internally struggling with how to deal with the family dynamic or family plan, those sorts of things. Um, yeah. And then what else do we have here? So then the aspect of Jupiter. Jupiter's in Punarvasu. Punarvasu is symbolized by a bunch of arrows and a quiver. So there's a lot of cycling energy related to Punarvasu because the arrows kind of, they fly out when they're strung up on a bow. You shoot them off, and then sometimes you go pick them up and put them back in the quiver. Um, Jupiter is also, I would say, like about balance. And so, an equilibrium. So Jupiter is in the 12th house of losses expenditure. So this could be like losing equilibrium. So again, this could be like, keeping your mouth shut, to try to keep the family peace or, to not make a big deal of it. And then something happens and then things kind of, blow up, first internally, but then externally as well. And then again, there's a Purvasya, the cycling energy. It's kind of like going in and out of balance here. And then Saturn again is also aspect in. Saturn again is in this funeral pyre energy. So that's like, and Saturn is visible. So this is like, and Saturn represents physical things. So it's like physical destruction or ending of something. And then Ketu's in nakshatra of Purva Phalguni, which is symbolized by hammock. So usually that's related to arts and traveling and socializing and this kind of thing. And that's Ketu. So this is almost like the end or disruption of, good times or party or, that sort of thing. And Ketu's in the second house of inner circle and family. So we're getting what we would call confluence, or like, again, we're seeing kind of the same story, but in different levels, which is indicating this is a very strong what we call drid karma situation. So I have a whole video on different kinds of karma as it relates to Jyotish Vedic astrology. One type of karma is called drid karma, which is a fixed karma. So drid karma, it's like it can be positive or negative, but like when we see various indications in a chart, clearly moving in a positive direction or negative direction, that's going to be like how would I say, it's going to be like a situation that you can't control. Like no matter how much you might try to avoid it or try to bring it on or whatever, like things are just meant to go a certain way because there's so much karma fixed in a particular direction. Okay. So Udrid karma, just as a counterexample, Udrid karma is non-fixed karma. So that might be in somebody's chart where it's like on one side we see, oh, it looks like there's a positive indications for whatever, a car. And then there are other indications where it's like, oh, it's not looking so great for having a car. And so it's kind of a mixed, or Udrid karma. So that means that if it's mixed, then you might actually have more wiggle room in terms of like the choices that you make and the thoughts you have and the speech you have and all this kind of stuff to develop, the kind of karma to direct it in whatever direction you want, positive or negative. Most people, I guess, would want positive. So anyway, this chart at this moment in time is looking pretty fixed in terms of a lot of, internal emotional turmoil. And again, there's a lot of, again, from an Ayurvedic point of view, which is traditional Indian medicine, there's a lot of pitta here, a lot of inflammation. This could be internal bleeding. Okay. The other thing is that the sun is in the middle of all this, and the sun represents general vitality and health. So that's not looking super great. Yeah, and then again, so this with K2, again, in this fifth house, or not fifth, second house, this could be an Saturn aspecting the third house. Second house represents speech, um, and the third house represents non-verbal speech, like a physical speech, like writing sometimes, or the way you move or dance or that sort of thing. So with K2 disrupting the good times and Purva Phalguni in the second house, this could be somebody blurting something out or saying something that's disruptive to the family dynamic. Okay, because that could be what's going on here. The other thing is Saturn aspecting the third house of nonverbal communication. This could be like somebody writing, email, or texting, or physically not showing up, or like maybe they got an invitation, they just ignored it, or they didn't show up, or they wrote back like, I'm not coming. This looks like it's like a cancellation of an event here, or disruption of some event that's involving the whole family. Okay. Yeah, so all that's going on. So the dasha period is the planetary period, and that indicates of the 9 classic planets we have here, at different dasha period times, you're going to have some planets that are more active or influential than others. So this particular moment in time, K2, which again is this disruptor up in second house here, inner circle, family, assets, also physical assets like movable property and even portfolios and things like that. Like financial portfolios. There's some disruption related to those things. And then look, we've got Moon, Saturn, Venus. So Moon and Venus, again, the 2 emotional planets. And Moon is mind, imagination. Venus is not only emotional, but this is, again, close loved ones, but also spouse-like partner. And Saturn. So Saturn is, again, in this cremation energy. It's also, you can see Saturn just recently, I would still call it Sunday here. I consider Sunday points to be 2 degrees out. Technically, it's 1, but you can see Saturn is at 1 degree 21 minutes here in the 9th house. So Saturn is just starting to become more stable after it retrograded very close to the Aquarius Pisces line. And now it's starting to become more stable, but it's still not great. And Saturn is a very physical planet that also represents delays and obstacles in history and stuff like that. And Saturn is also the lord of the 7th house of partnerships spouse-like partner, business partnerships, independent business. It's also Lord of the 8th house here of deep psychology. So there's some disruption, even physical disruption of relationships, independent business, also psychology as well. So again, not super great. I'm actually kind of seeing this as unusual, destructive, state of being. And Venus is also the planet representing worldly advice, and it's in the 5th house of advice and counseling. So this might be sort of a last attempt to ameliorate a situation that just kind of like goes haywire and blows up, essentially. And also with all these planets, I mean, Venus, Moon, Sun, Mars, K2, Saturn, Jupiter in the 6th house here. I mean, this is like a mental pressure cooker situation going on. Okay. This could also be related. I keep talking about family. This could also be related to a boss because, again, the 6th house represents employees and the 9th house represents like boss and authority. And you can see the Lord of the 9th house is Jupiter. It's gone to the 12th house of, losses and expenditures. And then we've got this, Saturn in the cremation energy and, a nakshatra in the 9th house. So this could also be like, like a work family, I guess you could say. Yeah. So, this could potentially also be a creative breakthrough, because Venus and Moon are the two sort of aesthetic and kind of creative planets, possibly. But because the thing is, like right now, it's sort of like again, critical mass time here, a critical time, and then by the end of the month, most of these planets will be moving out of Mula into Purva's shadow, which is more of like a sorting energy. Okay, and I don't think I finished the other thought I had was about Venus. Venus is is a worldly counselor planet in the house of counseling, 5th house, but you can see it's about to drop off into the 6th house here. So again, this is sort of like Venus represents things like compassion and diplomacy and stuff like this. So this is almost like somebody who's at the end of their rope and can't take it anymore and just blows up. Especially because Mercury, the planet of the logical, analytical mind, is not involved in this situation. So whatever is going on here is definitely like an emotional blowout type of situation. Yeah. The other thing this could potentially be, since Venus it's unstable, but it is currently for the minute in the nakshatra of Jyestha, and Jyestha is all about protection. So this could be some sort of like advice about protecting the family, like life insurance, type of, thing where it's like, oh, you want to protect your loved ones in the case of loss or something like that. Like, um, that could be going on here as well. Um, because Venus is advising, like, oh, what if something happens to your family? You want to take care of them and that sort of thing. The other thing about this whole chart, besides this huge thing that's going on in the 6th house, is that this is basically K2 dominated. Even though K2 seems like it's just doing its own thing in the 2nd house, it's aspecting all these planets in the 6th house. And Mula is in the star of K2. So you're going to have K2 aspecting Venus, Sun, Moon, and Mars, planet. And then they're all going to be in a nakshatra in the star of K2. I mean, that's a lot of K2 energy. That's a lot of, explosive, divisive, separatist, unusual, unexpected, can't believe it's happening, never imagined it happening kind of stuff. And K2's again in the 2nd house of family inner circle and assets. And then the other thing is that it's aspecting the 10th house of daily activity. So we have K2 on the daily activity house, and then the routine house of 6th house. So yeah, something weird and unusual is going on here and affecting, a lot of people. So yeah, let's see if I have more if we're going into the houses. Okay, so we're going into the houses now. So basically, that was sort of an overall view of the chart. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through house by house and get into a little more detail. And then after I do that, I'm going to get into the amshas, or they're also known as the sub-zodiacs or divisional charts. And that'll give more detail, and even more detail. In addition, the amshas are used to help with timing of things, understand timing of things. So, all right, so let's take a look. So now we've got the same chart. Now I have all the arrows in here. So it might look a little confusing, but that's why I started doing, trying to take this piece by piece before we get to this point. So the exact time, I don't know if I mentioned that. So the exact time for this chart is December 19th, 2025, 20:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, New York time. That's the time zone that I live in. So again, the Lugna nakshatra is Aslesha. Again, that's going to bring attention to something, and it's going to be an emotional attention. It really catch you off guard, potentially, probably, because there's so much instability here. Then Sun, Moon, Nakshatra, those are all in Mula. Again, that transformation energy, the seeds planting, trying to grow. But again, that's the thing with seeds. Most seeds don't make it to the top of the soil and grow into anything. I mean, they die off, or they don't get enough water, or they rot because there's too much water, or there's not enough light to draw them up, through photosynthesis and all that jazz. So then the day lord here is Venus, and the Hara lord is Sun. So again, that's bringing this energy to Venus, some sort of unstable advice related to instability, and then Sun, that's leadership, overall leadership. Sun can also be father, Venus can be loved ones. And I said, like, right, protecting love. So Venus can represent love, but also Venus is with Mercury, and Mercury is the lord of the third house of, again, nonverbal communication. That's why it looks like something is being written here about, like, a problem or ending, or again, cancellation or rejection or something like that. Um, and then the sun here is again, Sun is in Mula as well, and it's the Lord of the second house. So it looks like there's some, like, ending of communications or a conversation or something going on here. The dasha period again at K2 Moon, Saturn, Venus. So emotions, endings, separate, unusual, ending of good times and emotions and that sort of thing. And this K2 Moon, Saturn, Venus is shifting to K2 Moon, Mercury. So again, Mercury is the logical, analytical mind. So this is bringing a little bit of, like, perspective, more kind of logic to whatever's going on here. And that shift is happening on 10th of January, 2026. So we've got a good, what is that, a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks here in this kind of energy. So, in terms of the general social context, we've got a lot of holidays going on. Hanukkah's happening. Christmas is about to happen. Yule and solstice are also happening a couple days after this. So, in these, worldwide events, what do they represent? Like, Hanukkah represents things like lights and miracles, because it's all about the lamp that had supposedly just enough oil to light up for a day, but it lasted, what was it, eight nights or something like that. And so that was considered to be a miracle. And then Christmas is like the birth of Jesus, who's also considered to be a miracle figure. And, there's a birth, there's like a renewal, kind of like this Mula energy, hope. Let's say, even when you plant a seed, there's a hope that something, positive or useful will grow from that. And Yule is all about, and these holidays are all about celebrating lights, and solstice about the birth of the sun. And so you can see there's a lot of kind of similar energy between these different, social events, but also the chart that we've got going on here in terms of, like, you know, shifting of cycles, and, holding on to hope, during dark times, and, celebrating, what we can, when we can. Yeah. So, So, what do we've got here? So then the lugna, to get into more detail there. So again, it's Cancer rising or Karka lugna here, movable water sign. A lot, that means there's a lot of emotions, churning emotions here. And the lugna's Gandanta, so dually unstable. And then to make it even more unstable, Mars is aspecting Cancer here. And Mars is debilitated in Cancer. Mars is like a action planet and how do I say, like a fiery planet, innovative planet, also rebellious planet. So again, this could be like a, and Mars is fiery, so it could be inflammation, but it's combust. So this is going to be something internal where there's like this internal rupture or physical, or it could be mental. And again, it probably looks like it's mental. It could be like involve like tubes as well. Like whether this could be like a plumbing outburst, but it could, because Cancer represents like water that's between a couple of boundaries, like a river, which could be a pipe, like in a house, like maybe the pipe's blocked, and then it ruins your family get together plans or something like that. This could also be a pipe, like in the GI, like the gut, like the intestines and stuff like that's kind of a pipe in a way. So this could be like some kind of inflammation in the gut that, disrupts family plans because you can't make it to the family gathering or that sort of thing. So, or an office party, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so there's emotional upset, instability, rupture, churning, unexpressed anger. Because again, this Mars is not seen. So this could be somebody being passive aggressive, that kind of thing. Internal leadership. This could be some sort of water break, like literally a pipe bursting, or like the bursting of a relationship or the inner circle. Something that's because again, everything's basically in the sixth house here. The yogas in this chart, so I mentioned the Prabhaja yoga that gives a life focus to sixth house issue. All those planets there. We also have Balarishta yoga that's going to bring fragile beginnings here. And again, fragile beginnings, not just the Balarishta, but the Mula nakshatra. So again, you see this like very precarious moment in time here. We have a gajakesari yoga. So that's the relative position of Moon and Jupiter. So this is a networking type of energy. And both those planets are not particularly strong in their negative houses. So this could be like the ending of some kind of network or get together. And then there's a chandra-mangala yoga, that's the relative position of the Moon and Mars, that represents wealth and property. So those are also like wiped out here. So maybe again, if this is a party that got canceled or an event, like all the stuff that you bought, like all the food and the plates and the napkins and all that jazz, that's all like, down the tubes. There is some support. There's a solar and lunar yogas here because relative position of Mercury and Venus. So that's going to bring eloquence and renown and wealth and stuff like that. So again, it looks like there might be some relatively polite communication about like an ending or cancellation or something like that. Some sort of polish or cushion to the blow here, because clearly there is something going on here, disruption. And pretty strong. I mean, this isn't just like oh, no thanks, maybe next time. This is like hard and fast and unexpected no. Be emotional no. Um, then or ending. Then we have chidra grahas. These are planets of vulnerability. And look what's here. I mean, the planets of vulnerability are Sun, Venus, Moon, which again brings us right back to this, Raja yoga. And again, Sun is father, Venus, spouse, Moon, mother, and then Mercury's there as well. So, chidra grahas represent like planets of vulnerability or sensitive spots or Achilles points or something like that. So, this could be, what could this be? Oh, this might be like a spouse. Maybe what happens here is maybe the spouse cancels. Like you want to go visit your family, but your spouse is like, I'm not going or something. It could be that, that kind of situation where it's like, since the spouse doesn't want to go, it kind of blows up the plans for the whole family. That could be. especially because, again, the spouse in this chart is related to Venus, which is unstable, and Venus is about to go to the 12th from the 7th. So the 7th house represents spouse, and the lord of the 7th house is the Saturn in Purva Bhadrapada. So this could be the spouse not feeling great or not wanting to go, and Saturn has gone to the 3rd house from the 7th. So this is like the spouse saying they don't want to go, and maybe, then the other spouse can't go, and so it just ruins the whole thing of visiting the family. So yeah, it could be that kind of thing. But again, there's like internal, mental, emotional leadership. I mean, I think it's more than just like a, polite canceling of plans. Because again, there's so much energy here. This is pretty intense. So I think it's like, even if there's a polite-ish no, or just decline of an invitation or something like that, there's a lot more going on underneath, internally, physically, mentally, emotionally. Then we have the yogi, aviyogi, duplicate yogi. These are planets related to wealth or lack of wealth. So the yogi is Saturn, and the aviyogi is Moon, and the duplicate's Mars. So yogi and duplicate yogi, these are planets representing wealth, and Saturn and Mars. So these are physical planets. Saturn is about history, and tradition, and Mars is about innovation and rebelliousness, and they're both Bhumikarkas. They both represent property, literally property and land. The thing is, Mars is, combust, so you can't see it, but Saturn is there. So there's some, and because Saturn, even though Saturn generally represents longevity, it's actually unstable because it's Sunday, it's in the 1st degree of Pisces there, and it's in that Purva Bhadrapada energy. So there might actually be uh, positive implications for the ending or change and shifting of physical, property or land here, like the dissolution, like maybe, I mean, this could be, this could be like a divorce, or breakup of a couple that affects the whole family and also affects assets and stuff like that. That's a possibility here as well. Um, yeah. And then the Aviyogi is the moon. So again, all this emotion, so all these negative, there's a lot on the moon here. You've got 3 fire planets, you've got Jupiter, you've got Venus, you've got Saturn. So basically, the whole family potentially is involved here, or all these different factors. It's a complicated situation that's emotional, that's physical, that's, internal churning. Yeah, and all this is on the moon, which is the emotional mind. So not just how you think, but how you feel, So, and then the moon is again in a weak position because it's new. So, and it's in Mula. So, yeah, it's a lot, weighing on somebody physically, mentally, emotionally. So yeah, wealth through physical destruction, inner leadership, loss through emotion. So again, this could be like I've had it, I'm not doing this anymore kind of moment, like kind of blow up. It might be, but again, it's starting off as like more of an internal blow up, more than external, but then it'll surface. So, then the 2nd house here, we had the Lord is Sun, Ketu's there in Purva Phalguni. So again, disruption to inner circle, assets, speech. This could be laryngitis, like a viral infection, or so maybe somebody cancels some kind of event because they literally can't speak. The disruption of good times. And gains through, this could also be for those who are investors and stuff, this could be like gains through like unstable technology, or like social technology, yeah. Then the 3rd house here, the Lord is this, well, we have a bhavat, bhavam, Mercury, so the 3rd Lord is gone 3 houses away. So that means there's going to be like one nonverbal communication after another. So like one, this is like a texting war or email war or something going on here potentially. Mercury's in Jyestha, so Mercury's in a protective mode as well as Venus here. So we've got, deep transformation, we've got things blowing up, we've got fighting, we've got protection, And again, the Saturn is aspecting the third house. So again, this might be some sort of protective message regarding something that has ended, like a text or email that's disruptive to kind of siblings and neighbors and friends, because that's third house stuff. And the fourth house lord is this Gandanta Kambas Venus, very unstable and in Jyestha. So again, the fourth house is mom, it's home, it's lineage, it's so, trying to, and happiness, so there's instability here, protection. There might be some, you know, um, a little bit of a softer edge because Jupiter is aspecting there, so that'll bring some, you know, um, you know, potentially politeness or buffering to all this instability here. Um, but like this could be like a revolving home, like going back and forth, visiting different people, different sort of holiday events, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and then the fifth house lord is combust Mars and Mula, Mercury, Venus there. And the fifth house represents romance as well. So again, we've got indications that there might be a relationship issue here. Also, fifth house is creativity, children, and this could be related to, again, not expressing or loss or lack of kindness and diplomacy, because this Venus, which is the social grace planet, is losing it. It's doubly unstable here and dropping into Mula in the sixth house. So again, despite all efforts, it might be like you're just like fed up and like I've had it. I'm not doing this. Um, Again, some sort of evolution and emotional transformation here. And then on the next slide. So we now on this slide, all the stuff on the left is the same. On the right are my notes for the other house. So the sixth house I've been talking about pretty much this whole time. So again, Jupiter aspecting, Sun, Saturn aspecting, K2 aspecting, and then you've got Sun, Moon, Mars, and basically Venus as well. So acute issues with the relationship, mid-GI, inflammation, food poisoning, infection, accidents, some kind of internal injury. This could be surgery as well. Probably bilateral, or like at least a couple things going on here. Like dual sided, because this is a dual fire sign here. So this is like, I would say almost sort of like flailing around, not knowing exactly what to do. And then let's see, various unseen enemies, because again, the sixth house is the house of enemies here. Fighting behind the scenes, passive aggressive behavior, something related to the above that basically takes out or affects many people. Because Venus is also aspecting the 11th house of clubs, group, society, and for a minute here it's strong, but then it's going to drop into the sixth house. So then there's going to be trouble with groups and things like that. So again, this might be canceling of an event. The seventh house here, seventh house lord is Saturn. So again, negative notice about an independent business, partners, declining invitations, or maybe ending relationships. That's a possibility. Eighth house here, eighth house lord is Saturn. So again, more disruption. And it's aspected by, a retrograde Jupiter. So, and then there's a Swa Rahu there in Satabhisha. So there's like some sort of feeling like there's a situation where you can't do a whole lot about. Loss. Oh, sorry, we're innovative. There's like an innovative thinking here, and ambitious but obsessive thinking. But again, it's like it's like the mindset here, deep mindset here, is this is going to be hard to rectify. Although there's some hope and optimism here because Jupiter's involved. Then, but Rahu is there. That's a very unusual situation, innovative thinking, and it's in Satabhisha, which is 100 healers. So this might be like some sort of hope that some unusual progress will be made or breakthrough will be had. But again, this might be something that's really hard to kind of crack open in terms of what exactly is the issue, or how do we fix this? How do we ameliorate this? And that might be the kind of sticking point, is it's like, we've been trying to fix this for a long time and it's just not working, and it's time to call, call it a day, on the situation, whatever it is, relationship or otherwise. Then the ninth house here, ninth house lord is Jupiter, and that's gone to the 12th house, and this represents, father, it represents boss, authority, religion as well. So there might be some losses or expenditures there. And this might be like the loss or expenditure might be actually like spending time, if you don't like on a regular basis go to the church or synagogue or mosque or a temple or whatever. Maybe that's the, you know, sort of cost, so to speak, is, disrupting your normal routine of work and whatever responsibilities, more mundane responsibilities, and stepping into more of that kind of energy. But this could be like, again, and Saturn's there, and then we have an aspect by Mars. So this could be loss of a leader, organization, internal fighting, restructuring. This could be engineering or real estate school as well. The ninth house can relate to high level education, higher education. And then this might have something to do with like going to school overseas or even student loans, that kind of thing, because Jupiter can represent like banking. And so, and loans and stuff like that. And it's gone to the 12th house. So there might be issues related to those things. The 10th house here, the Lord is Mars. We have an aspect like Ketu. So some unusual disruptive daily activity. This could be the end of festivities and work, temporarily or long term, depending on how you're looking at this chart in terms of what context you're looking at this chart. Then the 11th house, Lord is Venus. It aspects Sun house. So for a minute, it's strong. And Mercury's also aspecting, Saturn's also aspecting. But again, once Venus drops out of here, that veneer of social grace or whatever is going to end. And you're going to lose protection of the groups and the kind of socializing that's going on here. So, again, it looks like there's some disruption, like not just of, I think the inner circle family is definitely more disrupted than friends, but there's still something there as well. Then the 12th house Lord is Mercury, Jupiter, and there's aspect. Oh wait, aspect Saturn. No, there's no aspect to Saturn. I need to change that. But there's aspect to Sun. Sorry, that's correct. And also combos Venus, Moon, Mars. So there's a loss of balance, justice, authority, government, leadership, higher education, children. Like these are the things that could be, you know, it may not be, because we're not running these planets, like this may not be the main sort of context for this, but that's still going on. Those sorts of losses are still going on in this kind of chart. All right, so let's look at the subzodiacs, amshas, the divisional charts, as they're known as. And so, if you're not familiar with these are different kind of permutations or deeper analysis of the houses. And these are mostly used for timing. They're not usually used standalone to analyze a chart. So, and I put at the top here the dasha period because, and those are the planets that I circled in these charts here. So we're moving from K2 Moon, Saturn, Venus to K2 Moon, Mercury on 10th of January. And on this slide, we have the Navamsha D9, which represents spouse and partnerships, and the Dragana D3, which represents siblings. So in the top chart, the moon is not well placed, but it's exalted. So there's some sort of, mental, emotional change or ending going on here. And then we have an exalted Venus in the top in the Lugna, which generally is a strong thing, but Venus in the Lugna in the D9 actually indicates problem with partner or spouse, which basically is reflecting the same issues we saw in the main chart. So, yeah, and then in addition, so in the 7th house of this chart, there's K2, disruptive, aspected by Saturn, even more disruptive, and then debilitated Venus. So again, it's like the partner is just like fed up and like, had it kind of thing. Energy here. Mercury is in the 10th house, aspected by Jupiter and Mars. So this could be like, double duty, double work, double communication type of stuff. And then Saturn is debilitated in the second house by its aspects. So there's delays and maybe endings or obstacles of communication. So again, if this is like a relationship that's kind of, you know, on the rocks, there could be a loss of communication, like a no or minimal contact situation going on here, or just complete, ghosting or ending of things. Yeah. So then we have the Drake and a D3. All grahas in this chart are well placed. And there are 4 planets in the Lugna here. So that means that this is an important chart. So we have K2, Mars, Sun, and Moon in the 10th house. I mean, again, inflammation, leadership, confusion, obsessive leadership, disruptive anger. This could also be like a rescuing kind of loss type energy here. Um, which again isn't too surprising because Saturn, that really gnarly Saturn, was aspecting the 3rd house of siblings. So yeah, and then siblings is represented by Mars, which is combust, and it's in Mula in the 6th house. So yeah, problems with siblings for sure. Saturn with the debilitated Mercury at the top here, trouble with communication. And also Saturn is aspecting the moon. So you'll see that a lot in these amshas going through, is that Saturn is on the 2 mind planets, the logical mind and the emotional mind. So that's going to create some trouble in terms of deciding what to do during this kind of emotional implosion, explosion time. Then Venus is what's in Jupiter, because there's an exchange, there's a parivartan exchange of houses between Saturn and Jupiter. So Venus and Jupiter are both going to be in the 5th house, and they're both counseling planets, spiritual counseling and mundane counseling. So, at least that's going on. So, at least for a hot minute there might be some advice, positive advice for siblings there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of there's a lot of stress and strain here. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Um, Again, some sort of like emotional leadership through really tough, unusual circumstances of what's coming through with the siblings chart here. Then on this slide, we have the Satabhisha D7 for children and Dwadashamsha D12 for parents, grandparents. And so the children's chart is Vargodama. It's the same rising sign as the Cancer rising, like the main chart. And then we have, look at the 6th house here. It's almost the same. Like we've got K2, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon. I mean, that's essentially the same energies. What's going on in the main chart. We're missing Mars, and we're missing Venus, but Venus again is like in the 5th house, like it is in the main chart. And then Saturn is on Venus, so there's trouble there. And then the Lord of the 5th house is Mars, and Mars has gone to the 8th house of endings and change and long-term problems and stuff like that. So clearly there's trouble and change and going on with kids here. That's an emotional issue. And Venus is trying to help for a minute, but I think there's some really difficult. It's like it's difficult to get good advice about the situation that's going on here, specifically related to children, but then the whole chart, whole main chart. Then Dwadashamsha D12 for parents, grandparents. Moon and Mercury are not well placed. So again, those are the mind planets, mental emotional trouble. And we've got, look at the 10th house here, Saturn, K2, Mars. Again, you keep getting this like conglomeration, especially of all the malefics. That's going to create a lot of, trouble, unusual, sticky trouble here. And then the Lord of this 10th house is Jupiter, and it's gone to the 12th house. So again, trouble, scrambling with, losses, trying to ameliorate losses here. And then the Saturn, there's a suave Venus in the 5th house. So again, some kind of strong counseling going on here. Then we have on this slide with the Dashamsha D10 for career and reputation, and the Ekadamsha D11 for public support and income. So in the D10, K2 and Saturn are not well placed, and those are 2 natural malefic planets. So, that's pretty hardcore. Changes, trouble, losses. And then in the 2nd house, you have Saturn on Sun and Moon. And those are all soul enemies. So difficulties of mind, speech, health, leadership. And again, this is a career and reputation. Like I mentioned, you could, even though I kept talking about inner circle and family, again, this could be like a work family. You could think about it that way. And so that's all problematic. And then we got Venus in the fifth house here. So again, it's looking like there's some attempt through a lot of these charts where there's some attempt to bring about, diplomatic, practical counseling to ameliorate the situation. But again, I think this is just too much, for you kind of got to go on instincts here, it looks like. Um, so then the Ekadamsha D11, public support and income. So all the grahas are well placed, but you can tell it's not like a walk in the park. There's a Saraswati yoga in this chart, so there's creativity and education. And then we've got parivartana between Venus and Mercury. So, and what else do we have here? So in the Lugna, we've got Swa Mercury with Jupiter and Venus. I mean, that's a lot of positive communication, ideas, advice, news, and that sort of thing. So another thing this could be is this could be some sort of public event to speak about some sort of you know um, negative event that happened, like maybe a tragedy. That's also like when I start looking at the amshas, that's the kind of energy that's coming up through the amshas. So this could be some sort of, and again, this is the D11 public support. So this is like the public is involved. So you could take it to that level too. Like you could see it as like like a biological family or, personal family. You could see it as like a work family, but you could also see it as like family of humanity. You could, whichever level you want to, whatever level context you want to use here. But there's some creative events, communication, news going on here that's publicly supported. The fifth house is pretty wild. I mean, you got Ketu, Rahu, Mercury, Jupiter's aspecting, Venus is there by Parivartana, Saturn is aspecting as well. And so Venus is going to be Swa, Saturn's going to be Swa. There's a very strong fifth house here. There's some sort of structured stage, unusual event. I could see this being like a fundraiser. So maybe there is some kind of tragic event that happened that ends up becoming like a fundraiser. And then the 11th house here, we have a debilitated Saturn. Mars is aspecting there. It's Swa, aspected by Mercury and Venus. So this is, again, speaking about those who are lost. So again, this might be some sort of like memorial event, or like a fundraising event for people who've been lost or, harmed in some way. This could be like group support after a loss. Then on this side, we have the Chatratamsha D4 for assets and the Sadamsha D24 for education. So Saturn is not well placed in the D4. And actually, if you start taking notice, in most of the amshas, the planets that were not well placed more so than any other were Saturn and Ketu. So Saturn is in the cremation energy, so physical destruction. Ketu is like unusual disruptions and stuff like that. So that's running through a lot of these amshas, That's like, yeah, so it's pretty hardcore. Then, let's see, Saturn is not well placed and it aspects Mercury and Moon. So Saturn is aspecting the mind planets again. It's also aspecting Sun, so general health, vitality, and the ninth house and the ninth lord. So again, issues with mental, emotional leadership and loss. We keep getting that over and over again. Saturn and Mars and Jupiter in the 12th house, physical and human loss. And this could be, again, widespread, international even. The Sadamsha D24 for education. Ketu is not well placed. The 6th house has an exalted Saturn on it, Ketu, Rahu, and Mars. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's like all the natural malefics in the 6th house almost. I mean, that's a lot of unusual structural trouble. Saturn and Mercury in the 4th house, communications, decisions, physical loss, and this is in Leo, so a high level. And we have another Saraswati yoga here, so this is creativity. So this might be like, again, um, if this is like a national situation or international situation, this could be like some event that's put on by higher leadership to commemorate an event or people who've been harmed in some way. Um, or like Leo can also be a stage. This might be like celebrities putting on an event to raise money for, some unfortunate tragedy that's happened as well. Um, and then Sun and Moon are in the seventh house. This is like leading public partnerships. But this education here, this is more like a school of life type of chart where it's like there's creative public management and uplifting speech. You can see Venus and Jupiter here in the second house. But I'm not seeing so much like formal education, you know. It's just like learning through life. Then on this slide, we have health options. So the D6 for acute issues, the D8 for chronic issues, the D27 for strength and resilience. So in the top, Saturn's not well placed, and it's in the eighth house, so long-term, permanent changes. And then we've got Ketu, Rahu, Saturn in the fifth house, and Saturn's on the fifth house and the Lord. So there's trouble with, again, stage, children, potentially romance. We have an exalted Venus on the top with Jupiter aspecting there as well. So this is going to be, again, a positive, upbeat advisor here, potentially. So this is going to be like things might look okay, but on the surface, but internally, there's a lot of shift and change and turmoil going on. Then we have a debilitated Saturn with Moon and Sun in the second house. So devastation, inner circle, parents, mind, emotions, leaders, speech. Again, same stuff. D8, K2, and Mercury not well placed with Rahu and Mars in the sixth house. I mean, that's pretty disruptive. So acute problems with leadership, speech, and decisions. Then the bomb should D27 for strength and resilience. So Moon and Mercury not well placed. So again, mental, emotional trouble. We have a Swa moon in the sixth house with Sun aspected by Mars. So mind, leadership, irritation, disturbance. That's pretty close to the main, so similar to the main chart. Saturn aspecting Mercury and K2. A difficulty with communication, speech, writing, partnerships. Swa Jupiter, an exalted Venus in the second house. So again, maintaining positive, uplifting, helpful speech and attitude here. So again, despite the major disruption going on here, there still seems to be some strength. And then Jupiter and Mars, there's a parivartan in there. So that's going to bring a fighting spirit to all this. So again, it's like even if the win is like there's a lot of internal turmoil and just not allowing it to spill out of you into other conversations or people's way and that sort of thing, that might be the big win here. Swa, Rahu, Saturn in the Lagna. So the Lagna is also super strong. I mean, you have two Swa planets there. And Saturn's about, endurance, and Rahu's about ambition. So it's about, like, again, being really ambitious about, like, keeping your stuff together, keeping your mind together and keeping things from, like, completely blowing out. So again, this might be sort of like swallowing some, bad news or bad situation, and that's one type of containment, internal containment, in terms of trying not to let that spill out into other people's experience. And then on this slide we have spirituality and worship. So at the top we have the Panchamsha D5 for innate spirituality, and then the D20 for formal worship. So on the top, all the grahas are well placed, but Saturn's aspecting the Mercury and Moon again. So difficulties, the mind, emotions, communication, decision. So I think this is about processing, like the difficulties processing, or taking time out to really think things through and sort things out internally. Ketu's in the fifth house. You know, in the fifth house, and the fifth lord has gone to the eighth house, and Mars is on K2. So again, there's trouble with romance, children, things on a public stage potentially here. Um, so maybe that's the thing is like trying to like again, if this is like some sort of public event, for some reason, unfortunately, I'm thinking of what recently happened in Australia. There was a Holocaust celebration that happened at Bondi Beach in Sydney, and apparently a couple of guys went in there and started shooting people and killed a bunch of people and made a whole like mess of the situation. So I'm just wondering if it's something like that that recently happened where it's like, okay, now how is the community going to pull together and support each other through an event like that? Yeah. So then the D20 here, K2's not well placed, so there's some unusual changes. But what's nice about this chart, this amsha here, is that Moon and Venus are in parivartan exchange of houses. That means there's a lot of emotional energy here in terms of formal worship. I think there's some challenges because Saturn is on Moon again, and it's also on a debilitated Sun. So, and those are all, soul enemies here. So this is like like emotional support and health going on here. Like, propping somebody up who's gone through some physical and mental, emotional, devastating event here, whether on a personal level or group, level. Um, yeah, so there is, again, emotional strength and endurance here, I would say, through formal worship. So again, this might be a place of worship, but again, just something that's a little bit more organized and just sort of being on your own, in your own home, chanting or praying or reading inspirational text or that sort of thing. So again, 7 out of 13 options here, K2 and Saturn not well placed, so unusual endings and delays of some kind. And then also what we kept saying was multiple malefics on the moon and Mercury, not just Saturn, but, Rahu, K2, and all this sort of Mars and that sort of thing. So a lot of mental, emotional disturbance related to, this moment in time, unfortunately. So, but again, the, potentially good news is that those planets that are going to be in Mula altogether with the influence of K2 and Saturn, that whole Sagittarius energy. And again, if you're not a Cancer rising, your Saturn, your Sagittarius house is going to be going through you know, some sort of upheaval. Um, just know that again, this is sort of a critical point in terms of those planets. So many planets being in Mula, but then by the end of the month, most of them will have rolled through Mula, and they'll be in Purva Shada, where there's more of a sorting through energy. And then in a couple weeks after that, they'll move from Purva Shada to Uttara Shada, which is all about like a sudden victory. So, all hope is not lost, I don't think, but this is a pretty intense, critical moment in time, I would say. All right. So, as always, thanks so much for stopping by and listening to one of my talks. I appreciate all your support for my work in the channel and all the ways that you guys do that. Liking and subscribing and sending in donations, sharing videos, chatting with me in the comments. So, thanks so much for all of that. And again, all of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my concepts playlist. They can be found there. For more famous charts, birth charts, you can look at my birth charts archive list 2025 video where I list most of the famous charts I've analyzed on the channel and the videos you can find them in. I do offer individual birth chart readings, and again, I'm offering that intro level Jyotish class in January, so that's around the corner in a couple weeks. So if you want to be a part of that, email me at heartlightastro@yahoo.com for an application, and so we can get that going. Or if you want an individual birth chart reading, you can email me as well. I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine where I talk about Ayurveda, which is traditional Indian medicine, and yoga, so other Vedic arts, as well as other paradigms of medicine like homeopathy and naturopathic medicine. And the name of that channel is Nature Source Care, so that's out there too for you. All right, so as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. And again, just remember that all these cycles they do shift and change. So again, this might be an intense moment, but looks like we'll all be sorting it out together over the next few weeks. All right, so hang in there. All right, so take good care, and until the next one. Namaste.